This is AP Lit on Tuesday, March 2nd, and we spent some time looking at the poem To His Coy Mistress. I won't read the poem right now. I'll post it with the questions on my Caldwell, but I will go over the questions. I'd recommend that you read it, answer the questions, and then listen to this video for the answers. The poem is entitled To His Coy Mistress. And we started by saying that is another reason why reading the title of a poem is so important, when the title is not the same as the first line of the poem. Although the word coyness comes in there, it tells us who the audience is. The audience is this mistress of his, and so the entire poem is from the lover of her, and that's important. And then, you know, it identifies the key attribute of the mistress is that she's coy. Coy can mean timid, shrinking from contact, cute, artfully playful. I think it seems like a strategy. It's artificial. It's being timid or playing hard to get. So it's hard to tell if she is genuinely timid or if she is putting on being timid. We pointed out these questions, and what is the second question we'll read? What is the speaker urging his sweetheart to do? Basically, he's trying to seduce her. Why is she being coy? It's hard to tell. Either she is genuinely timid or she is playing the game along with him. The third question talks about the speaker's argument. The first word in every stanza, and that's another thing to notice, there are 3 stanzas. You should, when you read a poem, you should figure out just quickly what the structure is. You can tell that if it has 3 stanzas, then you should raise a question in your mind. Why 3? What's going to happen? I need to look for 3 things. There's a reason why. They're not the same length. There's a reason why he organized the poem in the way he did. So here we learn quickly that it's a presentation of an argument in his attempt to seduce her. The argument is basically goes like this. The first stanza said, had we but whirled enough. You can replace the word had with if. If we had but whirled enough. And so he's making the argument that if they had all the time in the world, and he goes on to exaggerate by saying, if you were at India and I was in England, you were by the Indian Ganges and I was by the English River Humber, you know, you could do your thing and I could do mine. He uses all these expressions of length of time. I would love you 10 years before the flood. And if you should please, till the conversion of the Jews. So those are extreme amounts of time. If they had time, and he would be able to, he would be okay with that. The second stanza refutes that and says, but we don't have time. And he starts by saying, I always see her time's winged chariot hurry near. And then the third stanza, since if we had time, we could take our time, and you could be coy. But we don't have time. Therefore, in the third stanza, he argues the carpe diem argument that we must seize the day. We must do this thing right now. We don't have time to wait. So that's his argument. Is it sound? Well, if they had all the time in the world, they could take their time. If time is going quickly, then they must hurry. I think it's not sound, and I don't know that if that's the right word logically, but the fact is, time, they have as much time as anybody else. And I always get a little more than suspicious when people put pressure on me to do something. You know, like, why can't we slow down and take our time, especially if someone's trying to sell me something? And so I think that there should be red flags here to this girl, that he's pushing me, rushing me to make a decision on this basis of this argument. The fourth question talks about the word vegetable love, which is the stanza where he talks about if we had time all the time in the world. So he describes their love as a vegetable love. By the time they get to the third stanza, he contrasts that kind of slow-growing, developing love. He uses terms like, and while thy willing soul transpires at every pore with instant fires. So he uses from slow vegetable love to instant love, and later he uses the image, let us roll all our strength and all our sweetness up into one ball. So the distance between Humber in England and Ganges in India is contrasted with this ball of tightly condensed and rolled sweetness, he says, and strength. So that image, those two images contradict each other. It says, what would the speaker be complaining of in the first stanza by the Humber if he were? And of course, it's her coyness. He doesn't like it, but he could put up with it. He'd have time to complain about it. There are three figures in the book, in the poem that we've got to look at, line 22, 24, and 40. In line 22, you have the statement of the winged chariot. Line 24, deserts of vast eternity. In line 40, slow chapped power. Let's take each of those. Tom's winged chariot. He's saying that he always hears that chariot behind him, chasing him. It'd be like listening to a clock tick. He's just always there. Time is always going by, and he describes it as winged chariot. The chariot's pretty fast, drawn by horses, but this is a very fast chariot. It has wings on it. So he's making the point that time is going really quickly, as opposed to the slow discussion in the first stanza in the vegetable love. He hears the winged chariot. That's what's pushing him toward death and eternity. And he doesn't make eternity look very attractive. He calls it deserts of vast eternity. Of course, no mention of a heaven or God. He just sees eternity as being empty like a desert and lifeless. And so between those two things, the chariot is pushing him quickly toward death, both of them, and what's on the other side of death, just empty, dry eternity. They have this other image of, in line 40, slow chapped power. So he's saying at the end of line 38 and 9, and now like amorous birds of prey. That's also an image that contradicts the slow vegetable love. Rather at once our time devour, rather than let time devour us slowly, the slow chapped power. So his attitude is the carpe diem. Let's take things into our own hands and quickly experience this rather than let time eventually take it all away from us. The last two lines, for what is son and metonymy? And metonymy is an object, person, place, or thing that is associated with something. For instance, the White House is a metonymy for the presidency, or the crown is a metonymy for the monarchy. In this case, the sun, he says, though we cannot make our sun stand still, we can make him run. So his argument is the sun meaning time. It's a metonymy for time. We can't make our time slow down. We can do the opposite. We can have him chase. We can get ahead of it. We can make the time run. We can speed things up. Since we can't slow it down, we can speed it up by doing this thing that he's encouraging her to do. Question 7, is this poem principally about love or time? Well, it's an opinion. The argument a lot of people would make, it's about time. Love is just the vehicle, is the instrument. But it's really talking about how time, because time is in every one of the one of the stanzas, and how quickly it seems to go. And of course, this is the carpe diem philosophy. And finally, number 8, what truth, goodness, or beauty can you find in this poem? Well, truth is that there are people like this guy that will put pressure on women. It could work the other way around, but make the argument, we don't have time to wait. We have to do it now. As I say, I'm always suspicious about high-pressure salesmen. And so there's truth in that. Is there goodness? Let's skip to the beauty, and then we can come back to goodness. The beauty is, as I had a student this morning point out, is in the language. It's a beautiful, it's clever argument. It's beautifully written in the images. We just saw the careful images of vegetable love or slow-chapped power or amorous birds of prey. And there are others we haven't even touched in here yet. So the argument is clever and enjoyable to read. So in that sense, there's beauty in the poem. But is there any goodness? Well, most people, I certainly don't, agree with the man's approach with, and I'm not saying that the poet does either. He's just pointing out there are people like this who will put pressure on people to get what they want. And in this case, the goodness is the warning, is the truth that you get out of the poem, is that life is like this. We need to know what life is like, and therefore we would not be surprised by it. So the poem is called To His Coy Mistress, and we didn't dig into everything you could possibly dig into due to time constraints in class, but we did basically look at those things, and so I offer this as maybe helpful for those that were not here today in class. It's good to talk to you. We'll see you later.